How's that? I hope you can hear me. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Let me know if the sound is good. Who's here first? Wall Dragon, you're here. Welcome, welcome. Linda, hello. And Juan, you found us over here in the other classroom. We're hanging out here because locked out of the other classroom. Penny, hey there. Thanks for joining. And Isabel, hopefully people will know to come to this other backup channel. Isabel, how are you? I'm having a good evening. I'm glad you are. Hey, Joseph, hello. Welcome. And Mish, you're here. Hey, Mish. What's up, Sean? Hey, Sean, I hadn't seen you in a while. I know we've been like at this classroom, okay? But thanks for joining. And Christine, hey there. Tracy, wow, Tracy Busby. You are a new name to me. Can we welcome Tracy Busby? I'm glad that you are here, Tracy. Welcome. And Patrice, you're here. Susan, welcome. And for anybody joining on Facebook, welcome. And Jules, hey, Jules, nice to see you. You said, oh, how's it going? Yeah. The sound is good. Okay, great. Well, the thing I want to do, GirlCode is here. Hey, GirlCode. Yo, okay, gotcha. You'll be here shortly. Wonderful, wonderful. It's been a few years, Tracy. Oh, yeah? I've been watching for years and I lost you. Well, good. We're reconnected, okay? Let's try to keep our connection, okay? We kind of run around here with backup channels, whatever we have to do. Alan, welcome. Nice to see you, Alan. Yeah, so I want to introduce you to a guest. Hey, Sharon. Sharon's here. You found us over here, Sharon. Good. Okay, a special guest, and he's waiting backstage. Okay, his name is Brad, and you know how I talk about my church family, my church life when I lived in Southern California in the LA area. Brad was one of the most special brothers, okay? And we did a lot of work on a documentary, pro-life, and we learned a lot about the abortion industry. And we just, we got to meet a lot of people. So I'm going to bring Brad on to meet everybody, and we're going to talk about the Kings of the East, okay? Brad is a wealth of information, and you'll love him, okay? All right. So, Brad, there you are, Brad.
Hi.
Hello.
Nice to be with you. Doing great, great. I'm having a good time in California. It's getting cold. It's almost down in the 60s. I think we got to get our jacket on.
Can you believe these guys, the California people? Oh my gosh. Everybody's saying hi, Brad. Hi, Brad. Mish.
Hi, nice to meet
Hey, look
everybody.
at
Thanks for
that.
the
You're doing some
introduction.
love in the chatmosphere. Yes. Christine, yes. We have a Bryant Moore. Hey, keep winning. That's right, Bryant. Welcome, Bryant. Welcome, welcome. Isn't this nice? So, Brad, thank you for
Yes,
joining today. This is
you're welcome.
so
My
nice of
pleasure to be
you.
here.
Well, listen, I told everybody as much as I could in a short amount of time. I want you to tell everyone about yourself and what is going on with you out in Los Angeles. And I want you to talk about, if I could kind of steer the conversation
Please.
into this area of the Kings of the East, and you have spent time in the East, and I wanted you to share some of that, if you don't mind.
Okay, well, it's my pleasure. A little bit about myself. I'm a swimming pool contractor. I have a contractor's license to deal with repair and building swimming pools. So I'm not a white collar person. I'm more of a blue collar person, and do a lot of the work myself. So I wanted to kind of encourage everybody can get involved at whatever level they are. And what I was able to do through my company was self-finance myself to go on missions trips to start with. As I was a young Christian, I was reading like the four Gospels, and I was reading the book of Acts, and I was looking up from my Bible at the church, and I was kind of looking around and just wondering, where's the adventure, where's the excitement? Like I'm reading what's happening in these books, and then I'm looking around and it's not quite the same. And so I started to search out some like-minded individuals in our network. And as you know, you met Mike, the painter, and Mike the painter had contacts at a Bible college in a couple hours away, and he was doing overseas trips, and he had asked me to go to a trip to China with him. And it was very interesting to me. I'd done a couple of local mission trips, local as in going to Mexico and maybe going across the United States, but never this far away. And the idea is I was going to go with a big group of people, but what ended up happening was I got paired up, and my mission changed a little bit. And what it was is to deliver a young couple out of Bible college to the underground church on the island of Hainan. And we had it was my second time in Hong Kong. And so what my mission was is to get us into Hong Kong for 4 days, and then get our visas, and then transfer in from the Shenzhen airport, and then onto the island of Hainan through for the air flight. And we were met there on the other side of customs in Hainan with the church basically picking us up. And so what the interesting twist about the timing of us getting together is that we're all talking about this spy balloon that has just gone from the West Coast to the East Coast of the United States of America, collecting how much data on all of our nuclear sites or whatever they want to look at. And when I'm holding my ticket back in 2001, I'm packing my bags. I'm a little bit nervous to go because when we were communicating with the underground church, they will look at your email. So there's certain words you can't use, like Bible and Jesus and Father. So we had substitute names for that, like the book and our big brother and, so forth, as to not even draw any red flags. And then I look at the news, and April 1st, 2001, we have a spy plane that's off the shores of Hainan Island, and they send up a couple fighter jets, and they force our airplane down to the ground. And they are holding our military. They're holding 13 personnel on the island, and I'm looking at a ticket to go literally to the same place. And so everybody told me, don't go, don't go. And I said, well, I have a team of people. I have people that are meeting me in Hong Kong. We have people meeting me in Hainan. I mean, this operation is a go, and I can't pull out right now. So we went there knowing that we have these 13 service members that are being held at the airbase, and that they're chopping our plane into bits, eventually to give us a bill for $1 million. And once I get to the island, I'm really hyped up because this is an international event, and I'm asking everybody there, and nobody knows one thing about it. They're finding this out from me for the first time. So the interesting thing about the timing with us talking about maybe when I went to China, for instance, with the two newlyweds from Bible college going to speak English, teach English at the university. This event in the news happened, so it's an interesting tie-in to when we were talking about. So I ended up coming out of China by myself into Hong Kong, and made it safe and back to work on Monday. That's kind of one of the adventures, and that we could talk about. I did another mission trips into Russia, and I've been in and out of the island of Cyprus and Turkey, and a couple other places, but everything's a little adventure, of its own. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to maybe see if I could live out a little bit of the book of Acts myself, especially before I started having kids. I didn't tell Tammy any of this until afterwards on the China thing.
Oh, wow. Nice. Well, listen, I want you to meet GirlCode. She has popped on to the stream. GirlCode, I want to introduce you to Brad.
Hello, Brad. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. I heard so many fun stories about you and so many great things. It's so great to finally meet you. I'm going to pop in so you can see my face before you leave, I promise. But
please, yes.
In the GirlCode spirit, I'm fully attentive, but I'm always doing things, moving and grooving. But awesome. I am right here with you. The story is interesting. I'm smiling ear to ear. Jen wanted us to meet so bad. So this is so interesting. I'm making my way to the bottom layer of my home away from all of the children. And so I'll be popping on visibly soon. Nice to meet you.
Sounds great. Yeah. Well, Jennifer's a big troublemaker. Half the story she got me, she was the instigator, I'm telling you.
Oh, doesn't she have the most amazing stories? Like, she just has us in awe, like, all the time. She has these great stories. She's so well traveled, so well spoken, so well educated. And, she brings on every now and again these amazing people like yourself. And so I'm just elated to know her. And now I'm happy to have you as a friend.
Excellent. I'm excited. I was thinking that when I was going to be speaking with, the type of group of people that come around Jennifer in her life. Jennifer's so fun, and she has a lot of really deep wisdom. And, the other thing about it too is experience, because once you mix experience with wisdom, you have a really interesting person. And then the type of individuals that gather around, we always end up being family. And so I end up going to Philadelphia and I'm family, and I go to Atlanta and I'm family, and I go to Los Angeles and we're family, and we just go all these different places, and it's amazing. And that's the other thing about kind of being in the family of God. Wherever our personal walk may be, we're still in the family. So that's the other great thing about it. Whether you're in Germany or China or Atlanta or Philly or LA, you get around this group of people, that it's like you've never spent any time apart. You're back there where you used to be, like last time you were. So it's great,
That is great. Brad, GirlCode mentioned Turkey. Now, she told me, I talked to her earlier, that they had a really major earthquake. I went straight to Twitter and she sent me some links, and it started trending. And you've had quite of an experience in Turkey. What are you sensing in terms of the things that are going on over there in the middle, as they call it, the Middle East? tell us about your experience living in that area of the world.
Our when I finally launched to do like the big full on missionary thing, we relocated to the island of Cyprus on the southern western edge, and so we were located underneath the Cypriot or Greek government, the Cypriot government. And actually, in the book of Acts, there's a time where Paul goes to the proconsul, and there's an episode where he's talking to the proconsul, and we actually lived about 5 minutes away from that spot. I believe it's Acts 13, and the place was called Paphos. And so right outside of Paphos, we had a little flat, and that allowed us to launch into these different places in the Middle East, you would say. When we went to the north part of the island of Cyprus, that would be Turkey. So when we crossed over, the dividing line on the island of Cyprus, it's the city of Nicosia is the only divided capital in the world, and it has a 5-mile buffer zone in between the UN buffer zone in between the middle of the island. And so the top half was invaded by Turkey. And one of the ruling bodies of our government was Henry Kissinger at the time. And I say that as a story for later. They invaded the top part of the country and then stopped. So the Cypriots, Greek blood Cypriots, fled south and left all their homes. And so they're very resentful even 30 years later. And so when I was in the equivalent of the Cypriot DMV, I have a guy tapping on my shoulder asking me why I allowed Henry Kissinger to allow Turkey to come in and invade. And I said, well, number one, I was born in 1973 or 73. And then also I only get one vote and I don't have a direct line to the president of the United States. So, he was wondering if McCain was going to be winning. Anyway, interesting politics. They really the rest of the world really does pay attention to the United States politics. So what we do really as leaders, good or bad in the world, it matters. And so then all the way down to our local jurisdictions and politics, which we could talk about sometime later, we can also get involved in underground or grassroots politics. But for the Middle East, and as far as the kings of the East, I believe you're speaking about Ezekiel 38:39. Is that where we're starting the kings of the East? There's a valley of the dry bones, but also in prophecies are the kings of the East that make their way over the dried up Euphrates River, which I think is happening right now, right? And then there's some talk about 4 angels that are buried underneath. They're going to come loose in the end times. I'm going to give up. I want to hear from everybody else here in a second. I believe I cracked the way to look at the end times. So in my way of looking at it, I would be in the second half of the Daniel 70th week, or would be the time of Jacob's trouble, or we call the second half of the tribulation. So after the abomination of desolation, after the mark of the beast, after the rapture, then you're going to go into the great tribulation with the 144,000 are being released. I believe that Kings of the East sequence would be playing out, drawing the armies to the Battle of Armageddon, which is interesting because we can start to see that set up. So I'll let you guys, I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. But as far as the idea of the Kings of the East, that's what comes up through Scripture.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you led into that, Brad, because GirlCode and I have been talking about that, and that is really in her wheelhouse of her research. Is she was keeping tabs on the Euphrates. So, and I see Sean McPeak is keeping tabs on it as well. It is dry for sure. Yes, indeed, it is. So we have Juan saying their end times. And, I want to talk about that because that's something that we talk about a lot because, I hadn't really checked in with you in a while, Brad, because just so you all know, Brad and I were part of the same church family out in Los Angeles and in the bubble, Thousand Oaks. So we attended a Calvary Chapel. And Calvary Chapel tends to be pre-trib. Would you say, right, Brad?
Yeah.
Definitely pre-trib. I mean, most people in our congregation were pre-trib. Now, Brad was the first person. I was staunchly pre-trib. And I have already told you all I had the t-shirt, everything for the whole Left Behind and everything. Tim LaHaye, right? So I bought into it a lot. So you were the first person, Brad, to challenge me with the rapture. So where do you stand? Because now Girl Code, when she's back, Girl Code has, like I
I'm
said,
here. Yeah, go ahead.
okay,
I'm
girl.
here though.
All right,
Yeah.
Sissy, I wanted you to mention something about, like, okay, Brad talked about the Euphrates, and then now we're looking at, like, in real time, we have a major earthquake, everybody. If you hadn't checked in with the news, there's been a big earthquake in Turkey and Syria. So, I mean, if you look at the damage, it's very dramatic, like buildings falling into their footprint, like similar to what we saw, September 11th. But imagine all these buildings just falling into their footprint. Horrible times right now. We have to keep them in prayer. But Girl Code, can you just talk to us, like chime in? Brad wants to hear, what are you saying about the Euphrates and
Oh, I was so
Kings
amazed
of the
to
East?
hear. I was so amazed to hear our brother Brad, and he actually was thinking the very same way that I was thinking. That's probably why you thought of the two of us at the same time that way, right? And so, yes, I says to Jen, because generally, Brad, Jen and I will talk to each other while we research the topics that come into us, and we tend to find ourselves on the same page unequivocally. We don't even realize it, right, Sissy? It's like she'll be like, oh my goodness, I was just researching that. And so we'll fall into this sort of little rabbit hole. And I'm working on a couple of videos that has the Kings of the East incorporated, and I had been waiting on this earthquake to happen. Okay. Sissy will tell you, Brad, I even experienced a little bit of anxiety before this here. Sorry, guys. That's why I keep my camera
There
off,
you
Brad.
are.
But I just want to pop up and say,
Yay!
hi, Brad.
Yay!
Nice to see
Yay!
you.
Beautiful.
Hi,
Our
hi.
beautiful.
So I'm like all over the place, and so like I don't like to make anyone dizzy, so I just kind of stay off the camera sometimes there,
Yeah. Yeah.
Brad. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to say hello to you.
Also nice to your face.
Yeah, yeah, you too. I'm gonna be like in the
Okay.
car while I talk with you.
I got you.
So, anywho, Brad, I said to Sissy, I said, Sis, there's this bad earthquake that I think is on the way um, to the East Coast. So tell me what you think about this, Brad. I'm thinking, we're dealing with the Kings of the East, but I was thinking that this earthquake was headed to the East Coast of America. And I says, well, I don't think that will happen until the Kings of the East march across the Euphrates River into Israel. And what do you know? About 20 to 30 minutes before I get on this live stream, I see that this horrible earthquake had hit Turkey and, affected Syria. And the aftershocks, Brad, were actually felt in Buffalo, New York. Okay? As a 3.8 earthquake, all the way from Turkey and Assyria, and I know that they're, neighboring cities to Israel, right? And so also I'll just add to that, and I want to get your take on it, that last year we had a really bad earthquake in Pakistan. And that was last year, I want to say like about June. It was either June or July. And it was really weird because it was during the time of the micro moon. And, we were in the micro moon last night as well. So I found that to be, really strange that both of those earthquakes happened in that area. And I'm thinking, I mean, had the kings of the East already invaded Israel and we just don't know about it? Sometimes I can get hung up a little bit on details. And, maybe that's not important. What is important is that, that Euphrates River did dry up, that we are seeing nations rise against other nations. And there is this, earthquake where we have over 3,000 people within the last 24 hours who lost their lives. And we have thousands of buildings flattened, and we're able to feel it all the way over here. So what are you thinking about that? I just want to get Brad's take on that, Sissy.
I think the first thing that come to mind is when we look at the four Gospels, for instance, and you want to talk about prophecy or end times, the first thing that usually comes to people's minds is Matthew chapter 24. So you actually have, out of the four Gospels, you have three out of the four Gospels that are paralleling. So we have Matthew chapter 24, we have Luke 21 and Mark 13, and they go through the Olivet Discourse. And he starts to talk about these birth pangs, where we're going to start to have earthquakes in diverse places, and that they're going to come more in frequency and in severity the closer we get to the end times. But it won't be just that. We'll also have, different, different things happening globally. So the interesting thing is that in the end times, in the last 7 years, it does talk about the earth scorching, the sun scorching the earth, and these different, global things happening. I try to look for a combination or a cluster of things that are happening, and I would say that the social decay, along with our four-dimensional war with the kings of the East right now, which is we're starting to get the consciousness is starting to wake up in that, but they've been at war with us for a long time, a lot of with the other Marxist angle socially. And then I also think that if we're going to consider these things as far as the Euphrates River, the Kings of the East gathering, we also have to consider AI. And I believe AI is that great who is like the beast and who can be like him and who can fight him idea. Mm-hmm. So as as much as I enjoy what's happening with Elon Musk, he's also in a race with not only United States, but different countries for the development of AI. And we know with China, the CCP's development of their social engineering, we can start to take these different pieces of the package, different puzzle pieces, and start to set them together. And the earthquakes that you're talking about is definitely one of the puzzle pieces. And my background is actually, I grew up as a LDS Mormon from the Latter-day Saints Church. And so the way I came out of that was by slowly and methodically studying scripture. And when I mean scripture, like just the regular good old King James Bible. And not only did I was able to come out of Mormonism through that process, but I've been able to see different things like end times prophecy, for instance. And I gave a 14-week class here in the next city over, having to deal with this subject, and also what our role as possible soul winners could be during the run up to the end times and the run up to the Daniel 70th week. Was a little bit of that talk. Is about 14 weeks. But
wow,
if I could make a long story short, I believe the way you could crack end times prophecy by looking at the Bible is by prioritizing the books in the right order. And that is what unlocks prophecy.
Oh, wow. That's deep. Now, I love that you brought up AI, Brad, because we've been talking about that a lot, and just how it seems like it came on on the scene very suddenly, but that Wait, are you still there, Brad?
Sissy, you're so
I
cute.
think.
The way you started to blink at the screen when you seen Brad's circle. You're just so cute,
Oh
Sissy.
yeah, I'm like, oh no. Just when I was now, was it the AI? What was it? So um now I guess he'll be back in. So okay, in terms of this AI and this end time prophecy thing, I'd love to hear his take on that.
Yeah.
Why don't you take it away, Sissy, in terms of the AI and your understanding of it in these end times? What is your take on that?
Yeah, well, it is very interesting that we're starting to hear loads of talk of AI. Every day AI is developing that much more than it did the day before, right? I was sharing with you an experience that I had last night. I had heard a ad. It was a ad, a YouTube ad, and in this ad, there was a lady who was trying to free up time because she had children and she was, I believe, a content creator and wanted to create content but still spend time with her family and raise her really small children at the same time. And we all know how that could be, right? Especially me. So they were rolling out this AI that had this text to speech video creation. Okay. So before it was this text to speech picture quality that you could get like a month ago. So every day we keep hearing about them unveiling more and more. Although I've been studying artificial intelligence for a really long time, so I could actually, see that this would be rolling out around this time. So, that takes people like, you and I, Sissy, and it kind of says it doesn't matter if you're a creator. It doesn't matter if you're an artist. Anyone that can text can now create videos. Anyone that can text can now be an artist, so that's one of the things that I saw come out just last night. But I mean, every day we see them getting more and more fancy with the AI, and
Mhm.
it just won't stop. I mean, they're just rolling it out. A lot of it they've been keeping away from the public, and as I'm noticing, they're trickling it out a little bit. Things that could work for us, things that we would find helpful. Okay, so that's the way to accept it. But I mean, if people really knew what this AI was really doing. This is the parallel world that they've been speaking about, okay? The digitalized clone, linking the neural sensations through the digitalized clones to the actual people. I mean, AI has come really, really far, and most of the people are using it for nefarious reasons. So I'm starting to see this ramp up. So what are you thinking? What are you thinking about the AI? Are you following like the new AI that's been coming out, Brad?
Not not too close, but I'm not. I don't want to discourage people from expressing their gifts, especially the people who do deep research and the, let's say, the public aspect, the pub waking up the public like you guys do, and you're more line of the fight. What I've been trying to do is focus on what I can do locally, so I'm not as tuned into the news exactly, but what I do know is that, prophetically speaking, the big interaction when AI comes to our doorstep is going to be right after the abomination of desolation, and when the Antichrist raises up one of his new edicts, he's going to basically transfer from being the man of sin, the man of lawlessness, to the actual incarnate Antichrist himself when he raises. When he does that, he's going to institute the mark of the beast, and the mark of the beast is going to be that integration between the AI and the human being, this symbiosis or what they would call transhumanism. Transhumanism is going to be forced on the world during the assassination attempt of the Antichrist, and 3 days later, the resurrection of the Antichrist, now instituting what is called the Great Tribulation period, or the time of Jacob's trouble, in which us as believers, we have 75 days before the rapture of the church. So basically, we have a 75-day period, and when we are going to be refusing the mark of the beast, refusing AI, and refusing to integrate. And if you can't integrate, obviously you can't buy or sell, and yada yada. But there's another key ingredient into beating AI. So I mean, I don't study AI closely because I already have it beat. I already know what my game plan is. So I'm not taking the mark, and I'm not going to take any damn Pfizer vaccine either. So I've already passed the test on what they are and aren't going to be putting in my body. So I feel pretty proud of myself. And you know, when it came to the point, I mean, I'm in California, to remind everybody. So, you know, thank goodness I'm an entrepreneur, and I call my own shots. And I have my kid. I don't have my kid in public school, or what I should say, government school. And so we were able to avoid it. So I avoided the first round of the mark of the beast, as far as I'm concerned. Not that it actually was the mark, but this is a trial run to get everybody going, along with depopulation. But there's no our paths are already set before we were born, if you're born in Christ. And so you have to operate with a mindset like this. Like, for instance, you have to have this mindset. So when I was going in through customs into China, and I have Bibles in Mandarin in my suitcase, and children's Bibles, which is a big no-no. We all three have them. And these aren't school teachers. These are, you know, missionaries. And we're going to the unsanctioned missionary. So you have to have this mindset that what's going to happen is going to happen, and it's in his hands. And so you have to try to stay calm and just move forward. So one of the things that I've done personally is, at some point, you're going to have to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I'm going to decide right now, before it happens, I'm not going to take the mark no matter what they do to me. And I'll see you guys on the other side, because I know where I'm going. So
All right.
When you do stuff like that, I mean, we can study AI and Elon Musk, but I'm just letting you know, I'm a little bit removed from the exact happenings at all times. You guys I go to you guys to get what's happening. Usually, I mean, I just found out about the Grammys. I mean, good night. I mean, is that not a satanic ritual on TV? I mean, I'm glad they're not getting any of my money.
No,
Yeah, it was so
not at
out
all.
in the open.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
at all.
very
And
open.
that's interesting, and you've got a great perspective. Certainly, you are being led by the Father, you know, so you don't have to study things. He just kind of gives you that download, and you naturally have the discernment, Brad. I'm happy to hear that you're tapped in. You know exactly what you're talking about, you know, and so, you know, but like you said, for others, you know, he may, you know, put them on a path for one thing, and then some people he puts them on a path for everything. And so, but certainly when we all are brothers and sisters in Christ, we all tend to know what not to do and what we're supposed to be doing. We kind of just automatically get that download, right? You don't need to really study it. It's just something that you know. And then when you do go ahead and you study it, if you didn't study first, you'll say, wow, you know, I always knew I shouldn't have been doing this, or I always knew I should have been doing it like this. So it's like, you know, he always puts us on that perfect path, no matter what it is, you know, what we did in our past or what's going to happen in the future. It's always the perfect one. So I agree. Like, I think it's well said, what you said, but, you know, we'll keep our eye on that Elon Musk for you, Brad, and the rest of those techie guys, because they think they're really slick and clever. So
Oh,
I'll watch them. I'll keep my eye on them for you over
yeah,
here.
that's right. Yeah, we'll do that. Now, I wanted to say something about this AI when it comes to the end time, like this whole eschatology that we're dipping into here, the whole mixture of the iron with the clay kind of thing is what I think of. But I want to ask you, Brad, what is your stand right now on the rapture? You've mentioned the rapture and you've mentioned the Antichrist. Do you still hold the same position? Because I know that, like, I was really pre-trib, and then you brought up some things that made me like really reconsider some things. What's your stance on the rapture and the way we can expect it to roll out? Like, how, because these end times are not rolling out the way I kind of expected. It's really a clown show. I thought it would be more woo, scary and stuff, but it's like, whoa, you guys are getting dumber. As they get evil, they get dumber. And I'm like,
Tell me
I
about
didn't
it.
know it would be this stupid. So what are you thinking about, like, the Antichrist and like the third temple and all that stuff? I was all into all that stuff, but it's not panning out the way I kind of expected. So, like, speak to that, like, Brad.
Well, let's start with things not panning out. I think you and I think everybody here on the channel is generally seeking truth, and in doing that, in the search for truth, a lot of times we find out that we're wrong, or we need to change our position. And I mentioned a little bit earlier, I started out in a Mormon family, believing that Joseph Smith was a prophet sent from God, so on and so forth, and yada yada. The problem is when I read the Bible, it didn't pan out at all. So the reason I changed positions is because I was willing to understand that I was wrong. I didn't know everything there is to know, and that I'm trying my best over the time of my lifetime to align myself with what the Bible says and dig deeper into what the Word of God says, because that was what really changed my position out of Mormonism and following traditional classic Christianity. So as far as eschatology, I was also, when I was a young Christian, I started going to some of the churches. Calvary Chapel was one of them. It's a great church. The things that God was working on me wasn't what my position in eschatology. The things God was working on me was like learning how to forgive people in my life, learning how to make things right that were in my past. So when I'm in the Calvary Chapel systems, I'm doing a lot of growing in grace, but not necessarily in this area. It was much later in my Christian walk that I started to dig into the eschatology and realize I was also wrong about this pre-tribulation rapture idea. In fact, I was wrong a lot about eschatology. So I was trying to figure out the most basic way to drill down this 14-week study that I did. I encourage people to listen to the Bible instead of read it. You should read it, but you can also listen to it too. So in other words, you can listen to the book of Matthew in a couple of hours, for instance. When you go through the Bible, sometimes the books will stand out and say a phrase like, I'm writing this book because of this reason. For example, in the book of John says, there's other things I could be writing about in this book, but I write these things unto you so that you'll believe, and by believing you'll have eternal life. So John is framing the book of John as the book of John is set up to get somebody saved. It's trying to mostly get somebody saved. So when you also go to the writings of John in Revelation chapter 1, verses 1 through 4, I believe he talks about how Jesus is giving this letter from the Father to Jesus, to the angel, to John, to the church, to explain those things that are going to happen later. In other words, to lay out the end times. The book of Revelation reveals. So what I figured out to do is, let's take the book of Revelation, which is claiming to be the great Rosetta Stone, the great revealing, and let's lay that out on the table first. And what you happen when you diagram the book, you have chapters 1 through 4, which is the 7 letters to the 7 churches. And then what you end up getting is to a 2-part timeline that overlaps each other. So just like in the four gospels, where you have 4 points of view of the multiple accounts and same accounts of Christ's life, in the book of John, you have 4 sections of the book of Revelation. You have the 7 letters, then you have part A, or the first timeline, and then you have part B, which is the second timeline, and then you come to the end of the age, which we can talk about, like the millennial realm. But the 2 timelines, they don't exactly overlap, they kind of offset, but basically you can kind of start one out on top of another. When you do, you'll see the same picture develop. And what that picture is, you have the birth of Christ, you have the death of Christ, and that at some point in the future, you're going to have Daniel's 70th week happen, or the last 7-year period. The problem is that all the accounts in the book of Revelation, and also the mirror accounts in the gospel, Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13, you can never nail down the start of Daniel's 70th week. The only starting gun, the only pin in the ground that we have is a war breaking out in heaven. We're not going to be privy to some war breaking out in heaven. We're not going to know when that's going to happen. The next thing is that there's the arrival of the Antichrist on the scene, but that doesn't mean we're going to see them. So really what we're looking for out of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the white horse carrying the bow, starting World War III, or taking over the 10 toes into the New World Order, or the United Nations New World Order combo, Vatican. That'll basically start. That'll start the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. We'll probably see first. So the World War III, famines, pestilence, and death. So somewhere in there, we're going to see this Antichrist come to order to solve the problems that he created. So he creates the fires and put them out. It's the classic Reichstag fire, what do you call it? False flag, red flag operation, whatever. And then what's going to happen is we're gonna be offended. So in Mark chapter 13, Jesus says that at the end there, I'm telling you these things so you won't be offended. So then we get into the writings of the Apostle Paul. Apostle Paul in Thessalonians says that there's going to be a great apostasy.
Mm-hmm.
What? Now this is where I'm going to step out of my biblical stuff, and I want to put a little tag here. This is my opinion. I'm stepping out of what I can prove, and now I'm telling you what my opinion is. My opinion is a great apostasy is when pre-tribulation Christians see the Antichrist take over the one world government, rise from the dead, and him saying, hey, you're going to take my mark or you're going to die. A lot of people are like, I'm taking the mark. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have a great apostasy created by the Antichrist. And the way my end times calculations from Daniel and from the book of John, we have about 75 days. Now, the people who make it the 75 days to the rapture without being martyred for the cause of Christ, for first of all, being martyred, it's the best thing you can have eternally. So don't be afraid if they take your life for not taking the mark. Like if you're United States and we're the tip of the spear on this, and you have to basically, I've looked myself in the mirror and said, I'm in FEMA camp section 9. And if that's where it ends, that's where it ends. But I also know that from the abomination of desolation until the rapture is 75 days. And the people who make it to the rapture, according to the Old Testament and the New, are the people who have all the armor on them from Ephesians chapter 6. The problem with Ephesians chapter 6 and the armor is everybody's missing one piece of the armor. So what I do locally is I make sure that the people that I can attract have all the armor on them so they can make it to the rapture and make it through the great tribulation of Daniel's trouble after the mid-trib and make it to the rapture. That's my goal. Not only to win as many people, but to train leaders to win people and also train people so that you yourselves can be one of the people that look up and say, wow, the sky just ripped open. I see a horse with this guy sitting on it with eyes of fire and, coming to pick us up, the great rapture. So I lived in the news and internet and prophecy world for so many years that I got to where I want to make sure I'm affecting locally as much as I can first. And then I'll, I get the news when I can for sure, because my networks let me know. But that's kind of what I was doing. So for a long story short, I'm mid-trib, and the rapture is 75 days after the abomination of desolation, what happens right in the dead set middle. And when I mean dead set, the very middle day of the 7-year period, and it's a Jewish 7 years. So it includes that one leap month, so that you have all the calculations. And I have all the calculations over there. We can get into it sometime, but the same mathematics on the timing of the rapture, for you Christians that are wondering, the same mathematics in Revelation part A and part B, when the timing is on there, it's Revelation chapter 5, the first one. All of a sudden, there's a multitude in heaven of every nation and tongue and tribe, all my people, singing a new song to Jesus. And the angel says to John, where are these people from? He's like, why are you asking me? I don't know where these people are from. He's like, those are the people that came out of the Great Tribulation. And so that's us in the future. So we have this great gathering in Revelation part A and part B, and you're either going to just get there a little bit early or you'll make it to the rapture. And then what will happen is, after the rapture happens, there's a transfer of authority from the children of Abraham, as far as Adam and Eve, and then the 144,000 take over. So I believe, like, as they're being raptured, the 144,000 are coming down that are protected from the great tribulation plagues that are getting ready to happen. And those people go out and evangelize the world, because at no time will God allow his grace to leave this earth. And at no time will you have the ability to get saved taken off the table, as the pre-trib rapture people say. And they twist up Thessalonians, which we can go into if people want to. Paul, when he talks about, the man of lawlessness and all this stuff, and I think it's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 or 4 or whatever. We can go there, but my thing is, once we're raptured, it's going to be a hell on earth. And the idea is to get as many people saved as possible that just won't wake up. I mean, certain people didn't wake up to COVID-19, even though we screamed and kicked and yelled, and now people are dropping over right, right, left, and center. And the red pilling people, especially the NFL guy, dropping over dead in front of everybody. Anyway, those people who won't wake up on level 1, maybe they'll wake up on level 2. Now God's gonna take this thing to level 10. And I love what GirlCode is saying, and I love what you're saying, Jennifer, is that it's silly to us, and it's like you don't want one man, one woman in a marriage and God's nuclear family that he created. You want a zillion genders and no family, and you want complete chaos. And then then we just have the Grammys to kick it off. I mean, it's going to get funky here, but the people that can soul win, which is what I teach, they're the people that are valuable to the kingdom. And this is a war. So God's looking down in my area going, all I got is that rotten pool contractor that cusses. He's not a very good representation of me. He speeds on the freeway. He cuts people off. You'd never know he's a Christian if he crossed your path. But darn it, he's the only guy that can win somebody to the Lord. So I guess I got to use him. So that's kind of the angle I'm playing, because so many Christians and all the churches I go to, winning somebody to the Lord is not the priority. It's bringing them to church is the priority. And that's not what they did in the book of Acts.
Absolutely.
I'm not doing that either.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having success just being rogue.
Right, right.
I finally found a church. Thank God. I finally found a church. He let me spend the whole entire month of January on his midweeks teaching this subject. So, but he went to the other 14-week class first.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, see, okay, now, okay, I'm going to have to just like, this is an iron sharpening iron moment because I have still to pin down where I understand the rapture because the pre-trib I definitely you challenged that. I started looking into it. Now the mid-trib, that's where you are now. So what do you think about a physical like a catching up, harpazo? Do you feel that it will happen that way? Just a sudden just
I think it'll be in full view of everything. And I have a little story in the book of John I'm gonna bring you to, but let's not use the word rapture for a minute. Let's exchange the word rapture. Actually, can I just take one little break? I know you're gonna love it.
okay.
Look at this. Look what I made.
My goodness.
Look what I made. Look at that.
Gray, how are oh, you look so handsome. Oh,
Hello.
You say wave to people.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, hi, honey.
I have to show you a picture of me holding him as a little baby, just
Yeah.
right when you were born, Gray. Gray used to have his little hats on at church. Since he was a little baby, he had so many cool little fedoras. Gray, right? Oh my gosh, look at
They have
you.
fedoras.
Yeah.
And you're surfing and everything. Dad taught you to surf. Oh my goodness. So what kind of surfer are you? Tell me about like what kind are you? Like
You're ice hockey.
I'm not really sure, but I started snowboarding and
Whoa.
ice hockey.
Ice hockey too?
And we're
yeah.
we're doing roller skating like in the 80s, like old school back in the ghetto roller skating. I want to
Do
come
you
out to
hear him?
Atlanta.
Girl
I wanna
code.
come out
He's
to Atlanta.
roller skating out here. You gotta know about Brad.
Listen, so let me
Don't let
find
the
out. They'll be
blonde
roller
hair
skating
fool you.
through. Yeah, they'll be roller skating at the barbecue. They are in. That is so cute.
Yeah, don't let the blonde hair and blue eyes fool you, okay?
For real.
These are some soul brothers right here. They're doing
For
the bop.
real.
They're like bopping around the roller skating ring.
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
that is so adorable. Oh man, nothing like a father and son. It's the most amazing
Yes.
picture ever.
He's the best dad. You are a great dad, Brad. I always say Brad is dad.
Yeah.
Brad is
You
dad.
held him.
Yes.
You held him the first
Good
day.
dad.
I got pictures of you holding him a couple hours after it came out of the oven.
That
That's
is
right.
so
I got him right there.
adorable.
Got him right
Yeah.
there. Oh, we got a lot of roller skating fans. Brad, I got to get some roller skates, dude. You got me like I got to go. Look, we got to do this.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of roller skating fans.
Yeah.
Well, this is that was such a nice treat. Thank you so much, Brad.
Yeah, they're going to the
okay.
jacuzzi. So we're talking. Did you want to lay out the end times? There's this hockey stick. So
oh wow, oh nice.
I lay out the end times would be the abomination of desolation is in the very mid of the week, and according to the book of Daniel, we have 75 days until the rapture. I can show you how that plays out, but instead of going into all the math, there's a way easier way to look at this. I mentioned in the four Gospels, we have the three Olivet discourses playing over again, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But it's not in John. And it's kind of interesting. Why is that missing from John? And well, one of the reasons is earlier is that John is focusing on salvation. You know, John chapter 3 with Nicodemus, the lady at the well, the rich young ruler. Really, if you want to get somebody saved, you start with the book of John. And that's where I build my gospel message from is John. But there's a passage in John where Jesus is speaking and he's like, look, I have to go out to the mountainside. I have to pray. You guys get in the sea, get in the boat, Sea of Galilee, and you go to the other side to Capernaum, which I've stood there at Capernaum. So get this. The guys get in and they go across the sea that's 7 miles wide. They get into the boat without Jesus on this travel, and their journey's going okay, but the closer they get to the dead center, because it says he went out 38 or 40 furlongs. A furlong is a block. We call them a block, or an eighth of a mile. So he gets out 53% of the way into the Sea of Galilee, and the fishermen, I think they're going to die. So like if you're on an airplane and the stewardess freaks out, it is time to freak out. So
Yeah.
if Matthew, Matthew is the bookworm, he's the guy writing stuff down. He looks over to Peter, and Peter's like, Matthew, we're going to die because these waves are coming over. So they're screaming for their life. And all of a sudden, Jesus starts walking on the water, and the water just goes completely flat for these people. And then it says, immediately they're at the shore. They were 7 miles. So they're only they're 53% of the way into this 7 mile journey. And it gets really rough about 53% of the way, about 75 days after the abomination of desolation. And then Jesus picks up, and then they're warped to the other side. So that other side is the finished battle of Armageddon, which wraps us all the way around to the beginning of the Kings of the East. The Kings of the East are coming to the battle of Armageddon. We're in the boat. We're going to be warped to when Jesus splits the sky open, and we're riding in our horses, and Jesus is going to take over this earth. Let me back up a little bit. Revelation chapter 5 talks about the lion from the tribe of Judah, and it also shows him as the lamb slain from before the foundations of the earth. He goes and gets a scroll in the middle of the 24 elders that are worshiping him. And he takes the title deed to the earth, and says, it's mine now. It's what Satan was offering him to take for free if he only bowed down and worshiped. And he said, no, I'm not going to do it that way. Well, he gets the title deed for the earth, and we come back with him, and he starts Armageddon, and we start the kingdom. We start the millennial realm. So the kings of the east, the Euphrates River, is preparing the way for the kings of the east. The kings of the east are preparing for the King of Kings. So what you have to ask yourself individually is, why are you here now? And what are you doing about it? And who can you reach? And the better you get at becoming an instrument, the better chances you and your family are going to make it all the way. And if you don't, well, you're only a couple of days ahead of us anyway,
Love it. Well, with the Kings of the East and the Euphrates drying up and the Gog Magog connection, are you seeing Gog Magog as Russia China alliance and Turkey and all of the Middle East, or how do you see that?
Yeah, I think the passages talk about also Meshach and Tubal and areas, right. And I think geographically you have to include the stands, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, because they're also nuclear countries. Right.
Oh yeah.
In the timeline in the book of Revelation, I believe it's timeline number 2, when it starts to talk about the merchants seeing the destruction of Babylon from far away, and they're saying, who's going to buy our stuff? And they say this great destruction of the Babylon in the west. Mm-hmm. It's the kings of the east and from the north that are attacking Israel, and also attacking, I believe, the west in general. And after the rapture, God's not, God wants people saved, but at the same time, he has to wake people up, which is a double-edged sword. So if you won't be awakened, you won't be awakened. So the kings of the east, which would be this conglomerate, would be the China with their 1 million man armies marching directly east out of China toward Jerusalem, or more correctly toward Armageddon, the Valley of Megiddo. and then also the stands in Russia going south, and then, being met by, basically the side that's backing the Antichrist. Because I think it'll be this control, this powerful control between the Antichrist and the countries that are still holding out with the New World Order. And then Jesus sets up his ultimate order for 1,000 years.
So GirlCode, where are you? Oh, sorry, Brett.
Yeah, that's it. That's kind of what I was thinking. The kings of the East are, mostly basically China and the North and Russia, all converging on Israel or Armageddon. But the Ezekiel 38:39 is a nation being born in one day, and that's more like, is that talking about the rebirth nation of Israel, or is that talking about Jesus' kingdom? And that's another discussion.
Oh yeah, I've had a change of heart on that since breaking away from the traditional church, I would say. GirlCode, in terms of this valley and the Euphrates drying up, what is your what are your calculations in terms of the Euphrates? And Brad had mentioned those angels that they're saying have been locked under that that area. What's your thought on that?
Brad also mentioned the number 75. He says 75 days until, the only thing I can say in terms of the timeline is that I really feel something coming fast. I feel the kings of the East coming fast. I feel that part of prophecy is going to be fulfilled a lot faster than people realize. And I kind of have these feelings before they happen. And I almost have, it's almost like it's not a sense of panic, but it's almost like anxiety. Like I feel a sense of anxiety behind knowing that they're really pushing forward. And some things I agree, a false flag. Sometimes the elite can make things happen to make it seem as if, revelations are, playing out here. But I mean, we've had the swarm of locusts, all these grasshoppers all over Sin City. I mean, they were just like all over the buildings, all over the homes. We had the frogs that were all over Japan. People didn't even understand where these plagues were coming from. We had the waters turning into blood. I mean, just some things, doesn't it seem like this, Sissy, to you? It's like when people see the truth in front of them, they don't believe it. It's like, oh, that's fake.
Right.
But then when there's something fake, they believe it, and as
Yeah.
God says, we're in the days where people look at good as evil and evil is good. It's as if they cannot even recognize when the truth is in their face, and they can't recognize a psyop when it's in their. It's just the weirdest thing. But
It is.
to answer your
It really is.
question, Sissy, yeah, I years and years ago, I used to always listen to Coast to Coast, and they used to have Doug Hagman would come on, and he'd have Steve Quayle, and Steve Quayle would always talk about the giant, right? And I was infatuated with this topic. And so, lots of people are actually hearing what they believe to be giants. But if you think about it, giants equal, and those angelic beings, the, fallen angels are really huge. They're not the same size as normal human beings. So I do think that those are imprisoned fallen angels underneath the Euphrates. I really do. In terms of
Okay.
I don't want to put anyone's face down or anything like that, but we have the majority of people over there are Muslim. And, a lot of those religions were created so that they could never see the light of day to who Jesus Christ is, to who the true creator is. And I think once this is all said and done, there'll be no doubt, who he is, who the true number one God is, with the big G. You know what I mean? So, these people are seeing these things and they're actually cursing God. they're walking on this dry riverbed cursing God, because I know that they have their own book, but they're cursing our God. So they even recognize the fact that it's coming from the true God, right? It's not coming from Allah. Okay. So yeah, this is just interesting, Sissy. But I know it's happening fast. I know it's happening really, really fast. I did a whole lot of
Mm-hmm.
research and I didn't want to go off of like a book or inside of my paperwork because I really wasn't even really thinking about it too much until research brought me across the path of the Euphrates. And then when I started to see all that was happening with it, of course, it's just amazing. And it's just good to, be able to get Brad's take on everything. He's so like you're like a theologian, if you will. You're really you have some great insights to the Bible and the days that we're in. So it's just interesting to hear your take on what's going on. Where do you think that we're at? And I'm sure that none of us could be 100% sure, but again, we always like to try to be in preparation, make sure that we are wearing the full armor of God. Sissy and I were just talking about that too. So if you can have a sense of the timeline or you can have a sense of the days that we're in, then you can actually make sure that you're prepared, for that day when it does arrive and it won't, sneak up on you.
And one of
Right,
the
right.
one
That
of the pieces of armor that we I was a part of a men's group, and Jennifer was part of our men's group, and we did some operations, and one of the things about the group was we went through Ephesians chapter 6. I was trying to look for an identity for the group, and as men, we typically go to the armor, but the problem is there's one piece of the armor that's always missing in your life, which is having your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace, being interpreted to me as being able to get somebody saved. Like, you got saved, right? So and almost all the examples of the worst people in the Bible, that's what was one of the first things they did, by the way, just as a side note. So having your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace should be happening naturally, but especially if you want to fight. So if you want to be mobile, if you want to be able to move around, you want to have God use you, you want to have the feet like a deer's feet. They talk about a hind's feet,
right.
running up and down the mountainside with good news. You have to make sure that you can share the gospel. So I literally walk people through showing how, I have a printout that I can send everybody if they want. And once you have the printout on you, God starts to do all kinds of crazy stuff in your life to be that bridge to the person he's been thinking about that you don't know about. So I kind of got a little lost in my thought, but that was kind of Ephesians chapter 6, having the feet shod with preparation of gospel, being prepared to spread the gospel in light of the end times is putting the odds in your favor that you're going to make it through the end times.
Okay. That's good.
Right.
That's good stuff.
Somebody in the chat had a question. I'm sorry, Sissy.
Yes, please.
Someone in the chat had a question for Brad. I believe it was Molly Moose, I believe. And she said, Sean, how was it during the times of, did she say LDS? The LDS?
Yes, yes.
She wanted to know a little bit about that.
I grew up in the church. We call the church, or we call it the truth. We call it the full truth. So the story goes, two good-looking Mormon missionaries came to the door when my mom was holding me in her arms, and my mom decided to join the church for her own reasons, and so she became a member of the church. And I grew up believing it. Why wouldn't I? My whole life. And when you're in that kind of environment, your whole life is within the church, whether it be Boy Scouts inside the church, or your whole life is kind of wrapped up into it. And part of the belief system is we have This is going to blow you away. If you guys want to go down this road, maybe this is where we should go. The basic idea behind Mormonism is that they have extra knowledge that eventually allows you to become like God or become God. So as a male, if I transition through all the steps of the LDS church, I will become like Elohim himself. And as Elohim, I have to have spiritual wives to populate my planets with, and I need to pick a Jesus figure to allow these. So it's a replicating thing. And so as a Mormon, I'm reading through Genesis chapter 3, and this is just what God will do if you read the Bible. I read Genesis chapter 3, and the snake, the serpent, the enemy, the bad guy, says, hey, Eve, if you take this, I have secret knowledge that will allow you to become like God. And I was like, well, that's Mormonism in a nutshell. And so how do I deny that when my brain just goes boom? Like, I'm on the side of the snake right now. That's my philosophy. I've got secret knowledge that everybody else doesn't have. I have a prophet that came straight from God, a white guy that came to New York, of all things. And he started a new religion after he met some angels in the wilderness. Ring any bells? Do you guys know anybody else who went out into the wilderness and met an angel and came back with a new religion, including a new Bible, and then it got a bunch of wives and an army behind him? Sound familiar? So we're right back to the kings of the East. So we were talking about the Muslims and the birth of Muhammad. Muhammad is the same thing as Joseph Smith, just Joseph Smith copied him. So when Muhammad took the children of Israel, the descendants of, Shem, Ham, and Japheth that came off of the ark there in the cradle of civilization there in Babylon, where the Garden of Eden was, when the 365 pagan gods were transferred down into 3 gods. A lot of people just say Allah, but there's the sun, moon, and stars. There's actually 3 gods. If you dig deeper into Islam, there's the crescent moon and star. And, so there's other things going on with Islam, but how Islam plays into the end times is that in their end times theology, you have the Mahdi, the 5th Mahdi, which is going to come up and lead them to conquer the world for Allah, for Islam. They're waiting for this. They're waiting for the Antichrist. And so what the Antichrist is going to tell them is, we're going to do what we always did. We're going to do what Muhammad did. And the way Muhammad got victory between his first attack and second attack, his first attack didn't work. So he had to regroup and try again. So when he regrouped, they have this theology, and it's called, I should clear my foot for a second. It's called Hudna. Hudna is a deal you make with an infidel, and your intention is to break the deal. And you break the deal in order to surprise the enemy and gain victory over him. So Muhammad made a Hudna when he couldn't conquer the Kaaba the first time, and he regrouped and he broke the deal, setting a precedent. So the Antichrist is going to the Muslim world saying, I have a Hudna. You guys keep your mouth shut for these 7 years, and we're going to allow the temple to be rebuilt. You're going to have peace with the world. You're going to shut up when I tell you. You're going to go with the peace of Israel. We're going to do all the pageants. We're going to do all the parades. We're doing everything, but there's going to be a signal, and you'll know the signal. When I give you the signal, every Islamic country, along with every Islamic country, will flood over Israel and wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And that'll start to happen around the mid-trib, when it says that the the city of Jerusalem be trodden under feet by the feet of the Gentiles for 42 months. So at the abomination of desolation, when he comes back to life, there's going to be an invasion of Israel from the Islamic world. And after that invasion is when the mark of the beast is starting to be instituted. And that's when the 75 days starts. There's going to be a lot happening there. But Israel, the Antichrist is going to make a deal with the Jews. He's going to backstab them and fulfill the treaty he did with Islam and allow them to do what they've always wanted to do, which is wipe them out. And just to be honest here, I have Jewish friends and family. I want everybody saved. I have Mormon friends and family, but the blindness has been given to them in part so that the times of the Gentiles will be fulfilled. That's what the Bible says. So there's some kind of blindness and not allowed to the Gentiles to come in. The time of Jacob's trouble is to wake up the children of Israel to get saved. So I believe this will be a time where they're all being awakened. And that's why, as Christians, we put little notes in the cracks of the wall in Jordan, in that secret place in the desert. It's I'll think of the name of it later, but
is it Petra?
Petra, yeah. So when they're going to wake up and go to Petra as we're in heaven after the rapture, but this war will be happening, and basically the Antichrist is going to make a deal with Islam to get them to have peace, world peace. And then they'll build the temple. He'll go into the temple and declare himself to be God. And the Jewish people are going to be like, we're not down with that. So they're going to be at war with the Antichrist once he declares himself to be God. And then he's going to say, okay, Islam, come in and wipe them all out. And that was kind of the fulfillment when the Jewish leaders and the synagogue leaders were in the courtyard of Pilate saying, release Barabbas and let Jesus' blood fall on us and our children. There's some tie to the synagogue leaders saying, we'll take the blood of Jesus and release this Barabbas, and this blindness that is the period of time to the Gentiles. So I believe Daniel's 70th weeks is what wakes them up. And the people who are going to be doing the work are the people who have their feet shod with the preparation of the gospel. And if you're not, you might be in one of the FEMA camps, or you might, who knows where you're at, but we'll see. We'll just see. We're only a little behind you. So, if we've been chosen to go through this time, if not, we'll see what happens with my little man. I think he's doing good.
Well, okay. This was an enlightening conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was.
Yes, indeed. And we'll have to continue to have these conversations, because GirlCode and I are really looking into the whole Kings of the East, and the balloon and the whole thing with that is in terms of what is really happening with this stuff that's going on, like this distraction, this balloon. I know that they're saying, and I read something on Zero Hedge, something that Rand Paul had said, that it makes us look very, very weak in terms of the balloon narrative. I am not real sure about where see, are we still here?
Yep, I'm still here.
I think the thing is still here. Yeah, so the balloon, I believe, I don't know. They said they've had lots of weather, or airships, they even called this one, that have made a big deal about until now. And why did they make a big deal about it? Anthony Blinken was, Secretary of State, was supposed to have a meeting with Xi of China, and he hadn't really wanted to do this, had been putting it off. So this gave a perfect cover to cancel the meeting, because the meeting was supposed to happen and now the balloon has thrown that off. So I just, I see a lot of shenanigans. I want to definitely keep, just like keep my eyes open in terms of what are dealings in terms of China and how China has taken control of a lot here in America, as well as I want to also, bring people's attention to Africa. Africa has been very strategic for China, and you probably have heard that Africa and Russia, I mean, China and Russia have made pretty much an alliance with lots of African nations, and you can see, lots of the Chinese men even going over into some of the African nations and being like made chiefs and marrying a lot of the African women. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see how China, the great dragon nations will, um, I don't know if you all had heard about this. Lots of Chinese men are taking up with women from various African nations. And now I'm not sure if everybody in this picture, you guys can argue with me, I'm not trying to be offensive, but it is something you can look into, that you look at how they look at little girls in their culture. They have an imbalance with the male to woman ratio. So there weren't a lot of women, in China, I guess. I don't know. So this is what I've heard. It's a trend, to find women in African nations. So I think this is interesting, on lots of fronts like that. And just the way our nation is under the control of China. I don't know how this will shake out, but I want to definitely meet up again to have more conversations about the kings of the East, what's happening, what is going on. Anybody have any last words before I end this
I,
live stream?
I saw in the chat somebody was asking me how much the course was. It's free. I don't have an online course. I got together about 25 people locally and we met at a coffee shop and just did a study. So it wasn't like
Okay.
a course or anything. So I saw in the chat, but more than happy to
Oh,
just do whatever for free, because in the book of Revelation, he says that my reward is coming with me. He's got it ready for me when he brings it. So that's when I'm picking up my rewards. So I don't need any payment now. He's
That's right.
if I wait, then I get paid from him. That's what I would rather do. So
That's right.
oh, okay.
That's right.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Brad. And how about you, Girl Code? Do you have anything, like any thoughts?
I just want to say that, Brad is our guest, and I was making sure that I have watched the chat, and we have a really tight ship over here, Brad. It's like a family, like there's so much love here. There were a couple of trolls that came through that I made sure that I blocked. So, if you were
Oh,
being
wow. Thank
attentive
you.
to see anything like that, I do apologize on their behalf. There are names that we don't recognize. We've been doing this for years,
Oh,
and as time goes on, we tend to see new people drop in. So we want to say that we appreciate you. We're looking forward to having you again, and just keep shining your light. And we just will be right here with you.
yes. Thank you. And thank you for that. I didn't know we had any trolls on the new channel, but you know how things are. But yeah, thank you so much, Girl Code and Brad. Thank you for the reminder of like that full armor. A lot of us don't realize about preparing the feet to be shod with the gospel of peace. So I think that's wonderful. And maybe we could talk about that a little bit more in terms of being prepared in that way. But I want to thank everybody for coming over to the backup channel. Just know I'll be doing more on this channel. I just have access to it. So if you don't mind on the way out, if you hadn't subscribed, please, consider subscribing, liking, so we can, get more. They say that helps with the algorithm. We can kind of see how that works out. But until I get access to the other channel, I'll just do more right here. So thanks for coming over and being patient through the censorships and everything we go through. But, I don't mind being flexible and nimble, okay? Very nimble in these times. So, yeah, again, thank you for joining, Brad. GirlCode, thank you. I think the reception is acting up a little bit. But anyway, everyone, thank you for joining. Have a good rest of your evening. And I'll see you real soon. All right. Look out for like any updates on Instagram or Facebook. I'll let you know anything and drop some more little short, videos on this channel. Okay. All right. Take care.